Orlando. Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official audio program of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buckner, the Buck, the owner and the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 28 of the Hall of Fame show, and Evan Nolan and I, we had a plan. Sometimes plans are subject to change. We were going to look today, and we did, at the greatest halls of fame from each individual franchise from the big four sports, the NBA, NHL, NFL, and Major League Baseball. Didn't quite go according to plan because when we really took a look at it, not many of them really do a good job and some don't do a job at all. So we looked at that and then we did a little bit of a potpourri of just material, freestyling, because that's what two people can do when they've never met and just shoot the shit all the time, once a week. Hope you enjoy the show, and hope you're all staying safe. Without further ado, let's bring in Evan. Evan, I was going to ask you how things are in Chicago, but I think I want to ask you, how are things going to be in Wisconsin?
Hopefully cooler, because Chicago, I feel like I talk about the weather every time you ask me what's going on, but it has been unreasonably hot in Chicago over like the last month and a half. I went and mowed the lawn this afternoon in order to make sure that it didn't look entirely like we were the poorest house in the neighborhood while we're gone. And it was oppressive. I didn't like it. Why? What is going on? We're close to Canada here. We're going to be getting closer to Canada. Hopefully we can keep this, civilized.
Well, right now, though, I don't know if you sort of like heard some of the stuff going on today. There's some people freaking out, even some hockey writers back in Canada, a little worried about sort of how the hubs, they're in Edmonton and Toronto, thinking, we really don't want the Americans coming up.
Well, you guys did close the border again. It started in Mexico.
Mexico closed the border to the United States, too.
They did. At this rate, they are going to pay for the wall, but for the other reason.
It used to be my joke all the time when I was working customer service, or not customer service. It was like a sales for Rocky Mountaineer train company, and I was talking to Americans mostly. And so they said, well, what do we need to bring to Canada? Well, just a pole vault. Why? Because, we built a wall. The one you paid for?
Boy.
It worked.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. That joke usually worked for the most part.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had a big topic that we were going to do, and then after we both researched it, it's kind of fallen flat. Much like, really, there's not a whole lot, so we're kind of winging it today, which is fine.
Yeah, I think we should give a brief touch on the topic that we had at hand and why the Cardinals and Patriots have the best halls of fame and anything else you might want to bring up. But researching it, even if you type in into Google best team halls of fame or best team halls of fame, anything like that, it's which team is going to have the most Hall of Famers coming up? There's nobody ever actually goes and looks at them.
Yeah,
so you have to almost go painstakingly team by team by team, which I know you don't have anything to do, but I'm a busy man during the week, so I don't necessarily have time to go through every single team. How much time do you really want to waste on which team do I want to offend the most? The Jacksonville Jaguars. Who
do actually do a better job than quite a few other teams that you wouldn't think would be the case. And yeah, just again, specifically for those listening last week, we were going to do the teams that take care of their best halls of fame, or just sort of have their own franchise halls of fame, because not all of them do. Actually, a lot more of them, and you'd think I'd know this, don't. I can't find one in the entire NBA.
Interesting. The Celtics have got to have one. I know the Bruins don't for hockey, and we brought up the fact the Maple Leafs don't, which is kind of shocking to me.
Neither do the Red Wings or the Blackhawks. Or the Rangers.
Well, the Rangers don't deserve one. But, no, sorry. Yeah, it's odd how few teams have Hall of Fame. A lot of them have rings of honor. And a lot of them have retired numbers. Like the Celtics retired numbers is essentially their Hall of Fame. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this. So,
well, it seems to be like each of the main sports sort of look at it differently. So with NBA, the ultimate is the retired number. With baseball, it's a bit of a cornucopia of things. Hockey, retired number, a lot of that, or honored numbers. Football, so many of them have their versions of a Ring of Honor.
Right, yeah. I mean, the Broncos, I know, have a big deal about that because they just elected Mike Shanahan to their Ring of Honor, which was both welcome and a little bit of a political statement, I guess, as well, because of the political climate and, I guess, views I didn't know he held. But there have been a few people upset about him being elected now.
What does he... What are his views?
I guess they're very anti-protests that are going on right now. So, I mean, everything is... Yeah, the people who are upset about it, because Broncos Twitter is actually a fun Twitter to follow, unlike Patriots Twitter or Bears Twitter, which are both incredibly depressing to follow. You think that, like, Patriots Twitter, you think would be exciting, but there's so much hatred of Bill Belichick and how terrible he is as a drafter and GM and how they're idiots for doing this, that, and the other thing. They should have won more championships. That it gets depressing following Patriots Twitter. Broncos Twitter is actually kind of fun to follow. I enjoy Broncos Twitter. But a lot of the people who I care about on Broncos Twitter think he's deserving, but think this is the wrong year for it. So.
Well, yeah, that's sort of a tie-in, I guess, too, because as much as we kind of want to steer away from politics, and we've said that, it just always creeps back, and a couple of things I'm going to bring up later will kind of sort of have a little political tinge to it, but we'll try and make it as much fun as possible. So
back to the Halls of Fame.
Yeah, so when I was looking through that, so I just want to point out a few that I think are just really fascinating to me. The Winnipeg Jets Hall of Fame, which so that exists and honors a lot of the original Jets, which is fascinating because they don't actually own that history.
Yeah, that's something that I always think. Like, when a franchise comes back into a city that lost a franchise, they should get the players back. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Timo Solani belongs. Well, he played for Anaheim as well, but he belongs in Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't belong to the Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly, and that's sort of like the weirdest thing to me of all of this. And then I've been to Winnipeg like many, many, many times. I used to rep there in an old job, so like I've probably been there 14 times in like 4-day increments in my life. So, and I got to really know the people, sort of the culture, and most of those visits were before they got the Jets back.
Right.
So that's about as great a hockey city as there is. They love their Jets. Even when the Jets came back, they did change the logo, but they still have the rights to the old one. So I don't quite understand this whole Winnipeg, Arizona deal, who owns what. And credit to the Coyotes, who've kept some of those numbers retired, which they don't have to.
Right. But, I mean, they're going to retire Shane Doan and who else?
Well, yeah. Well, hey, maybe they're going to make some shocking run and win the whole thing when NHL returns. It could happen. I'm not even sure who their goalie is right now, but a hot goalie can do wonders.
That is also very true.
Actually, that's also a name of a really bad Canadian porn. A hot goalie can do wonders.
There's no bad Canadian porn. Stop lying.
No, there actually is, but that's another story for another day. So like that one I thought was like really, really interesting. So in a kind of good and bad way, if that makes any sense. Good in the fact that I think they love hockey. They're really paying attention to the history of that. Bad in that, like, why are they one of the few that actually have this? Why do they have something that Toronto and Montreal don't? I mean, Montreal does actually have a really good like a hall tribute at the, I want to say the Bell Center. Is that what it's still called? I forget.
I believe so. It's The problem with all these things is they go through so many name changes. It's hard to know, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like what's the new Seattle one? The Climate Awareness Arena or something like that.
That I haven't even heard.
Yeah, the naming rights for the Seattle hockey, it's the Climate. Jeff Bezos did it. So it's the climate. I know it's not climate awareness, but something like that. And I'm too lazy to really look up what it really is, but it's that same idea. So like that was something.
The Climate Pledge Arena.
Climate Pledge Arena. Actually, that is better than climate awareness, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess instead of
it is the Bell Center, by the way.
It is Bell Center, okay. So instead, I guess, of them sort of like trying to sell 50-50 draws, they're all going to be trying to get you to pledge something?
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, whatever works. Why not? And Seattle, if you're listening, I hope you go with the team name of the Kraken. Please do it.
That'd be fantastic.
Oh, yes!
Oh, no, I already broke my pledge.
No, you just don't have to do it. You just don't have to say that word 37 times.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I listen back to these things afterwards just to see how it went and if the cringeworthy moments are as cringeworthy as I thought they were. But 2 weeks ago, I realized I said the word fantastic a lot. And so last week, I decided I would sit down and listen, and I actually kept count. I said fantastic 37 times. So I figured this week I'd try to go without saying the word, and now I'm already 4 times in just talking about this. So we need to find another word. So the Kraken would be, let's see, wondrous. There we go.
Wondrous. Illuminating.
I got put right here. I got put fantastic. I'm going to go with synonyms.
So, yeah, that was...
I'm just going to have it in front of me and mark them off as I go.
Nice. So that was sort of like one that stood out for me in the hockey world. The Flyers have a nice one, too. What was the one? There was again, none in basketball. Nothing even close. Which is...
Yeah, I looked at the Flyers Hall. That was pretty good.
And I think sort of like maybe a good rule of thumb is, because when I'm looking at some of these, a lot of them, when they decide to do it, they decide to do it so late in the game that they're just not making everything special. And I think that's why, and must feel like, even though I'm not a Patriots fan, that I'm sort of licking the balls of the New England Patriots, but their Hall of Fame is our template for what we're going to do. They started.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I was going to say exactly. They have writers who decide voters decide on 3, and then one gets voted in, and then they have a seniors committee that goes and fills in the gaps for guys like Houston Antwine and John Morris. Houston Antwine, by the way, is on my list of people who should be considered for Hall of Fame from the old AFL. But I know that's not a discussion we've had. But there are a lot of AFL people who haven't gotten in, and Antwine's at probably the top of the Patriots list. But guys like that who played in the 60s and 70s, who a lot of modern voters aren't going to know who the heck they are and vote in, particularly with the Patriots dynasty, those guys are getting in first. So it's good to have the seniors committee to take care of that. But then essentially they put 3 up, one gets in, the other ones have to wait, and you keep going like that. It works very well. The Patriots didn't win their first, were a moribund franchise for a while, but they didn't win their first championship until their 41st year of existence. And so it started, they had a Hall of Fame before that, but they didn't start this process till about 2009, 2010, in the midst of everything, when it seemed like an appropriate time to do it. And they were the first ones that allowed people to vote until recently with the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And I like what the Cardinals do, too.
Yeah, and they started late, so they sort of like put in their first batch and then are sort of working their way towards the modern era. And they're still, I think, and they still have their Red Ribbon Committee for a senior. But when you do something too late, I mean, like I'll use an example of something. It's not quite a Hall of Fame, but it's a Wall of Fame. So the San Francisco Giants, they started theirs in 2008. I'm not even going to try to count how many they put in right away. But it's probably about 40.
That's too many.
Yes, and so it's not. There's nothing special about it when they do that. Now, granted, it's not a hall, but I mean, the fans love it. They care. The players care. what like it's something that can always be really special. I think also too with the Giants one, it feels also very artificial, or not artificial. That's not the word I want to use. Surgical. So like a player has to have 9 seasons minimum or 5 seasons with at least one All-Star. So
okay.
Great, you mathematically qualified.
That was a golf Hall of Fame when Vijay Singh mathematically qualified by winning a tournament, I remember.
Right.
Back before they changed the rules,
Yeah, so like in the same year that they put in Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Juan Marichal, and Orlando Cepeda, here's some of the great other names that went on the wall the same year, and I guess the same ceremony. Rob Nen, Scott Gereltz, Atlee Hammaker, if you remember him.
I remember Atlee Hammaker. He had a great name.
I remember him for his name and for him giving up in his one All-Star appearance a moonshot home run. And John Montefusco.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, and backup catcher Kurt Manwaring.
Who doesn't love Kurt Manwaring?
Oh, and also Johnny LeMaster. He of the career batting average of .222.
Yeah, I don't know who Johnny LeMaster is.
Yeah, it's career batting average of .222 with 22 home runs.
But they just thought he'd bring him luck. That's a lot of twos.
There's got to be. I'm sure there's some culture that just loves or hates twos. I don't know which one that is. That's a horrible segue to go absolutely nowhere. But my point, my point being, if you're going to do a Hall of Fame, I think your perfect time, and again, I'll use the Patriots. You sort of do that maybe 20, 25, 30 years in.
Right.
And then you're just building upon that. And then now they were able to sort of like add that interactive component. And that's
right.
what...
Or, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, because that's what the Giants ran into, where they sort of try to add this extra layer to their post-career accolades, and it comes up weak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I was going to say, though, is like the Patriots did have one that pre-existed, but that was inconsistent, and people were like, nobody's voted in for a while, and then Bruce Armstrong got in. And then they decided to go to this way of doing things, which is the way every team should do it, like we said. So it wasn't like there wasn't a Hall of Fame for the Patriots. They had it, but they adjusted it to make it better. And that's what the Cardinals did as well. Like the Red Sox Hall of Fame, for example, started back in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
And they put like a whole bunch of people in all at once. Now, a lot of these guys, like Eddie Collins, Jimmy Collins, Joe Cronin, Dom DiMaggio, Tony Conigliaro, Bobby Doerr, they're like legitimate icons of the team. Jimmy Fox, Ted Williams, Harry Hooper, Lefty Grove. I mean, these guys are all mostly Hall of Famers, or in the case of DiMaggio and Johnny Pesky, are like part of the group of 4 guys who are, famous for being there's a statue of them outside of Fenway now.
Mm-hmm.
Williams, Cronin, Doerr, and Pesky, and DiMaggio. So like, but that 95 class, like you said, again, had like, I have the whole list of names here. I don't have it done by year, but it looks like there were like 30 of them. So, I mean, Cy Young, Kari Yastrzemski, Ted Williams all should be there, but you could spread it out a little bit. And Chris Speaker, like it's just when you throw them all at once like that Wall of Fame, it just makes it odd. And I'd rather you take the time and say, all right, our first 5 are Cy Young, Ted Williams, Kari Yastrzemski, and then pick your next 2. I don't care, Jimmy Fox and I don't know. We'll just say Chris Speaker. Like those are your first 5, and then next year you can still have like all the other people to choose from. But when you throw too many at the wall at once, I think you're right. It's just a complete cheapening of the honor at the beginning. And then you get to the point where by 2008, you have a class of like Everett Scott, who's okay as a shortstop, Mike Greenwell, who liked to wrestle alligators, so I guess that's cool. And like a whole bunch of people who maybe belong, maybe don't belong, and you start getting down to people who were on your team for a while and may not actually deserve to be in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's more watered down than Kurt Schilling's store-bought wine. I'm assuming he can't afford it the way he used to, so.
I mean, he had to use his money from the state of Rhode Island somehow.
Nice. Before we go into another team, I want to go through more stats of Johnny LeMaster.
Oh, please. This is the content everyone goes in for, so please, let's go.
Okay. So 986 games played. So he had that's just with San Francisco. So he did have the career batting average of 222, but he had the batting average with the Giants of 225.
Oh, well, there you go.
An on-base percentage of 280. A slugging percentage of 293. So you're thinking, okay, well, this guy's got to, obviously, he was a great defensive player. You know, he played at shortstop, so yeah, he must have been great. No, want to take a guess at his career B-WAR for the Giants?
I can't even begin to guess. I don't know. That's one of those ones I sort of know but don't actually follow, so.
4.4, but in the negative.
Oh, well, I know enough to know that negative isn't good.
So, but same class as Willie Mays.
Interesting. So I just looked up Johnny LeMaster. He is, according to Jaws, the 1,110th best shortstop in Major League history.
Out of 1,000...
I have no idea how many there are, but let me repeat. 1,110.
And he managed he managed to make money at on a major league level. It's incredible. This guy should have been the Mario Mendoza. But he just didn't have, it should be the LeMaster line. I think if you have...
222 isn't a round number.
Well, okay, but if you have a career WAR under 0, then that's the LeMaster line.
Okay, but his peak WAR was 1.9 over a 7-year period. So...
I take that back. He's fantastic. I can use that word.
The average Hall of Famer, just to give you an idea, the average Hall of Famer's WAR is 67.5. And his career, according to what I see here for Jaws, is negative 5.4. Career.
Love it.
Batting, out of the average Hall of Famer for batting is 144. He is a 2.
A 2. There's that number again.
There it is. I'm telling you.
So I guess if we were sort of stick with baseball. So some of those teams that sort of did that and almost sort of followed that rule of just doing that midway through. I don't want to say midway through, just not because that's not right. But around that 25, 30-year mark. And so you're building this so that it sort of means something when they add a new Hall of Famer every year. The Twins, the Royals, the Padres of all teams have a better built Hall of Fame than the San Francisco Giants.
Mm-hmm.
There's something inherently wrong with that. But I want your take on something here. The Baltimore Orioles, they've got 78 members, none of which have anything to do with the St. Louis Browns. So that whole history, it's like it doesn't exist anywhere. Because the Cardinals don't do anything, and why should they? They don't have to.
Right.
I mean, the Phillies do with their Wall of Fame, and where they honor some great Philadelphia athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, the Browns weren't great, but still.
They were not good. They're not a good team. Maybe they existed for 52 years before they moved to become the Orioles. But They won 0 titles and had 1 pennant in their history, 1 AL pennant. So I guess they did have Bill Veeck. Is that how you say his name? I've never actually heard his name said. Is that correct?
I don't know. Let's just say it is.
Okay. Yeah, so Bill Veeck is there and stuff like that, but it doesn't surprise me necessarily that they did that. George Sisler is one of their best players. I'm trying to just come up with.
Marty Marion, the Octopus. Former MVP. Yeah. Their general manager used to be Branch Rickey, but he got fired by the new owner who wanted to put his own guy in charge, and that didn't go so well. It never does it? But yeah, the one with the reason also too with the Orioles one, because I don't want to say that they put in everybody, but that's a lot of people that they have. All things considering, but they sort of expand it to there's actually an umpire attendant in it.
An umpire attendant?
Yes, in their Hall of Fame.
I'm not quite sure what an umpire attendant's role is.
Maybe they're the ones who check on for, they look for Enrico Palazzo. Afterwards, I'm not sure. I guess they just make sure they're okay. But yeah, so some of the people they have in here that just sort of that's let me go through this. Your usual non-players. With coaches, executives, a PA announcer, why not? Yeah, Ernie Tyler, umpire attendant. Couple trainers, a fan, Wild Bill Hagee, I don't remember him. And Harold Baines, he's in this.
Well, Harold Baines is going to be in every Hall of Fame, my friend.
I think he will, whether he deserves it or not. Actually, that's interesting. Baines is in the Orioles Hall of Fame, but I don't believe his number is retired by the White Sox, whose owner essentially got him into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Or the Rangers?
Is he? No, he's not in the Rangers Hall of Fame. Is he? Let me check that.
I don't know. I would like to point out that Ernie Tyler, when he passed away, got a full obituary in the New York Times. Someone was assigned to write a full obituary of him.
I'm amazed you did that research that quick.
Well, once he gave me his name, I just put Ernie Tyler Orioles. And it says Ernie Tyler, the Iron Man of umpire attendance, dies at 86.
Which I bet will be a lot bigger obituary than Bonnie Tyler will get.
Who knows? Hers is going to have some total eclipse of the heart joke in it, let's be honest.
Well, yes.
So he had a streak of 3,819 consecutive games as the Orioles attendant. And then his streak was broken. Do you know why?
No, why?
Because Cal Ripken brought him to Ripken's induction at the Baseball Hall of Fame.
That's awesome.
So Ripken broke his streak. So I am now fully on board with Ernie Tyler being the Orioles Hall of Fame.
That is incredible. By the way, Baines is not in the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Rusty Greer is. And the mayor of Arlington. All good. So, yeah, those are just sort of the ones that I want to point out. I think, if anything, I'd like to think that we've kind of got the right system in place. So teams like right now, who need to get to start their Hall of Fame immediately, I guess like the Atlanta Falcons is one that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. They're probably a few years late, but they definitely should be on that. Like any team that sort of originated from 68 to 1980, get your Hall of Fame going right now.
I mean, we'll put it this way. The Marlins have 2 championships and have destroyed their team multiple times. But the Marlins started in 93, which would be, 27 years ago. If the Marlins started a Hall of Fame, would you think that was laughable?
Not with 2 titles, I don't.
I don't either. If the Rockies started a Hall of Fame, what would you feel? Because the Rockies have had more long-term better players than the Marlins.
No, I'll go by my 25-year rule. Like, as long as it's 25 is your minimum to start it.
Yeah, I can check the Rockies. Do the Rockies have a Hall of Fame?
No.
No, they should. Yeah, that would be fun. Like, voting between, like, Andres Galarraga and Larry Walker and Dante Bichette and who else do I want to throw there? I guess you throw Mike Hampton. But like they have enough good players over the years, and I just know they're ones I'm missing off the top of my head. Those are just the first 3 who came to mind. That Todd Helton, I think, has been retired long enough at this point where he would be someone they could put in. I mean they have enough players they could start one right now. The Marlins is a little harder just because they built those teams and not a ton of them were there that long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those were sort of the. Yeah, they won the World Series and both of them were dismantled.
Yeah, and I mean, and some of those people went on to. I mean, do you think of Gary Sheffield as a Marlin at any point?
Man, like that's why Sheffield's not in the Hall of Fame, because you don't think of him as anything.
Well, yeah, it's part of it. But I mean, even let's take their last championship. 2 of their main players are Mike Lowell and Josh Beckett. And granted, I'm a Red Sox fan, but most people think of those guys as Red Sox first at this point.
Now that I think about it, so remember what we got to look this up. I love this freestyle. This is stuff that I wouldn't think of. So you remember how it was just a couple years ago? I think it was you who actually brought up that as great as the 84 Tigers were, other than Sparky Anderson, they had no Hall of Famers, which has now been rectified with Jack Morris and Alan Trammell.
And hopefully Lou Whitaker someday.
Hopefully Lou Whitaker. Definitely hopefully Lou Whitaker. But there's no 93, 97 Marlins in the Hall of Fame, are there?
Let me check right now.
I'm pretty sure there's not.
Well, they do have Rob Nen. So let's see. They're Charles Johnson, Jeff Conine, Louis Castillo, Edgar Renteria, Bobby Bonilla, who last couple weeks ago had Bobby Bonilla Day. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day on the 1st of July there. Moise Alou, Devon White, Gary Sheffield are the main players. The bench included Cliff Floyd, Darren Dalton, Jim Eisenreich, Craig Counsell, Mark Kotze, John Cangelosi. And then the pitchers are Kevin Brown, who is a pretty good player, Alex Fernandez, Al Leiter, Tony Saunders, Pat Rapp, Yvonne Hernandez, Rick Helling, Dennis Cook, Felix Heredia, the Six-Fingered Man in Antonio Alfonseca, Rod Nen. Yeah, none of those guys.
And none of them probably will.
No, I mean, looking at this list, I'm trying to think who might even have the best chance. Renteria? Maybe?
Sheffield.
He's not getting in. Yeah, no, you're right. It's Sheffield. Kevin Brown is someone who I feel is a little bit forgotten. He was a very good player for a very long time.
Absolutely. He's just got that yoke of a bad contract. Just when things start to go sour.
And he batted 125 with a 139 slugging percentage. He was just 100 points short of making the Wall of Fame for the Giants.
That is my new thing, though. That's the LeMaster line, definitely.
So, all right. So what else do we want to talk about this week? Do you want to go through the deaths quickly, or is there something else you want to talk about this?
No. Do you want to go? There's a couple deaths you wanted to go through, so let's go through that.
Yeah. So just a couple of all-stars from baseball, neither of whom are particularly big names. But the first one is Frank Bowling, who played 12 seasons in the major leagues, hit .254, played mostly for the Tigers, but also played for the Milwaukee/Atlanta Braves. Was a four-time All-Star, but only because that was back when they had two All-Star games again. So he was All-Star twice in 61 and twice in 62. But he passed at the age of 88 in Mobile, Alabama earlier this week. Never going to be a Hall of Famer, but multiple-time All-Star, so someone who at least would – I always think if you're an All-Star, you should at least be remembered for what you did in baseball. But let's have a member of the Philadelphia Phillies Wall of Fame. Another two-time All-Star, but again, he was All-Star in 1960.
Oh, yeah.
That's Tony Taylor, who was one of the first big Cuban players who came over. I know his name's Tony Taylor. I wouldn't think he's Cuban, but he was actually born in Alava in Cuba. He had 261, had over 2,000 hits, 2,007 hits. Not much power, though. He had only 75 homers. He paid from 58 to 76. But he's a member of the Phillies Hall of Fame and is in the Cuban Baseball Hall of Fame as well, in 1981. So he also passed earlier this week. And then I guess the big name this week is probably Jack Charlton. Now, I know you don't follow English soccer very much, but you know who Charlton is at least, right?
I do, yeah. And like we were saying sort of like before I'm all in on EPL now. This is a very new occurrence for me. So I know who Jack Charlton is, but not that well. I saw a lot of the obituaries when it came out.
Yeah, so Charlton spent his entire career with Leeds United, playing for them for 23 years. Helped them basically to all their best times in soccer. Played 629 times for them, which is a lot for any one soccer team. Had 35 caps with England. Went on to coach several teams, including most memorably to me as a kid when he was the coach of the Republic of Ireland. And the reason it was so memorable to me was he was at that point Ireland. He brought him to the World Cup in '94 in the U.S. And he was looking like basically every single soccer player in the world's parents and grandparents, trying to figure out if he could get any of them to qualify to play for Ireland. So I was thinking there might be hope for me getting on the Irish national team. Of course, I would have to be better at soccer than I was. But yeah, he played on the team that beat West Germany in the World Cup final in 1966, which is the only time, or the first time they had in England. I think the only time they've had in England, now that I think of it. And they finished third in the Euro in '68. But one of the absolute legends of British soccer, English soccer, who passed away earlier this week at the age of 85.
And didn't Leeds just qualify for the Premiership now?
I actually didn't get a chance to check that. Let me double check. I saw that they played the other day. But I didn't actually see who
they
won.
did today.
Oh, they played today?
Well, I'm guessing because that Leeds was trending all over Twitter, and then when I clicked it, it said they've qualified. Maybe because somebody else lost. I don't know. I just read that they qualified. So they're returning the Premiership after a 16-year absence.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So Leeds has made it back. Good for them. Yeah. And Norwich is on its way back down. Norwich, by the way, becomes the most demoted team in the history of the Premier League. They've been now demoted 5 times. And the Premier League started in '93, the same year that or was it '92? Either '92 or '93, the Premier League started. So 5 times in how many years is that? 28 years. So including the years down there, that's quite a bit. So maybe they need a more intimidating name than the Canaries.
Well, at least they don't have to change it.
I suppose that is true. sort of on those lines, I do have to say one of my favorite headlines of the week was from the Onion that said, "Bowing to pressure, Dan Snyder changed his team name to the DC Redskins."
What an awful week for that team, and then the other scandal that just came out too today with them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's
wow,
not so good. I actually worked with a Redskins cheerleader briefly back in 2007, 2008 when I first moved back down to DC, and she was telling me some stories then, and I just took to be at the time that people just were terrible to cheerleaders in general.
Yeah.
But it apparently was the whole thing, because I asked her directly, because I don't want to tell her stories because A, I may not remember them correctly, and then B, they're not mine to tell. But essentially, she'd been there 3 years at that point as a cheerleader, and it seemed like they're pretty awful to them, and they were getting paid almost nothing, and then all this time they had to take to do promotional things, and it's basically like they were paid less than minimum wage. It was crazy for the amount of time they had to go out and do stuff and the way they were treated. I don't know why anybody would do it.
I honestly, I've wondered the same thing, because I've seen horror stories of what they make, which is virtually nothing. I guess maybe you just do that because you hope maybe you get noticed, because that's how Pam Anderson got noticed as a BC Lions cheerleader.
And Paul Abdul used to be a Lakers dancer, so who knows?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like legitimately can be a springboard to bigger, better things. You're hobnobbing with people that you wouldn't normally associate with. So I mean, there are some. Did I make a bad joke there and not even realize it?
No, I was just thinking of hobnobbing in the as a word in relation to the allegations against the Redskins. But continue.
Well.
It just seemed like a really big euphemism. That's all.
Yeah. No. Sometimes I don't think things through, which is
there's no way you could be inside my brain for that.
It's yeah.
Although I may use hobnobbing as my new euphemism for a boss taking advantage of an underling.
A hobnob.
Yeah.
Which will be the next word that's canceled.
Probably. Well, I mean, you did use rule of thumb earlier.
I did.
And you know where rule of thumb comes from?
No.
It used to be illegal to hit your wife with anything that was wider than your thumb.
I had no idea that that's where that came from.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. So anything wider than your thumb was illegal. So you could only hit someone, like your spouse or a child, with like a switch that was thinner than your thumb.
I'm probably never going to use that again. That's awful. I had no idea.
Yeah, and if you look back, everything is terrible.
So speaking of terrible, Jeremy Roenick. And this
see, you're getting good at this, man. I'm telling you.
Well, I did want to get your take on this, because I know that's someone who you predicted for the Hockey Hall of Fame last year, or the last time we did this, which certainly is looking further and farther away. I put my tweet today saying that if they want to do the anti-woke class, the 2021 Hockey Hall of Fame will be Don Cherry, Sean Avery, and Jeremy Roenick.
Yeah, well, look, first of all, Jeremy Roenick is just following Don Cherry's footsteps, which, Don Cherry's a legend. Sean Avery has absolutely nothing redeeming about him and should never come up in conversation amongst people ever again. But continue with Roenick.
Okay, so you heard what he did today.
Why don't you explain it to people who are uninitiated here? Okay,
so Jeremy Roenick, incredible hockey player in his day, someone who I think, and you think also, I believe, should be strongly considered, if not already inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, not just for what he did in the NHL and as for Team USA. Just great player. So he was fired from his job at NBC from a comment he made on a podcast with Barstool Sports. So he joked about how the possibility that he might because he would travel with his wife and then his coworker, Catherine Tappan, also of NBC Sports, and joked, so we might even have a threesome. Now, according to Roenick, women's groups sort of got into her ear and then made her sort of like do a statement that said that that's not some way you sort of talk about a coworker. I'm guessing if you're going on vacation with them, it's probably something he felt comfortable that he could do in some capacity, and maybe not in. I'm sure in close quarters, she wouldn't have batted an eye.
Mm-hmm.
Now, should he have been fired from his job at NBC for it? People have been fired for a lot less. People have kept their job for a lot more. Go Masked Singer reference, Nick Cannon. I'm looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
But he now is sued NBC with kind of the whole thing that now it's an anti-straight bias, and where he's getting this from is from comments made by Tara Lipinski and Johnny Weir. I don't watch figure skating, so I'm not that familiar with him. I know she was an Olympic gold medalist. I believe he wasn't, but is. Well, okay, is it a mischaracterization to say the man is not just gay, he's super gay?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Okay, so they were making. Go ahead.
As I say, and also a former contestant of The Masked Singer. But continue.
Oh, okay. I love how we somehow work at The Masked Singer in almost every episode. I got to watch this damn show.
I'm on their payroll. Go ahead, continue.
Okay. So apparently there was a video where they did something on their Instagram. I'll just read it. Read the quote here from the New York Post. On their Lipinski posted the since removed video. I guess they were both doing something on their Instagram accounts on May 29th, allegedly making a thinly veiled reference to a camel toe when she introduced Tenel. I guess that was some figure skater, saying, "Nice camel spin into a toe loop," despite the fact Tenel hadn't attempted either move in the video clip.
Okay.
Then Weir and actress Elizabeth Banks joked about Weir cheating on his wife, Lipinski, after Weir said of Tenel, "I'm really hoping we get to see her quads during this program, even though she hadn't tried for a quadruple jump." That's his base for this lawsuit.
Yeah. Probably not the most tasteful comments ever. I remember back when I think it was Wes Welker, or maybe it was Julian Elliman, was talking about Ryan's foot fetish and kept saying we have to get really good feet, got to stay on our toes, everything like that. And that didn't go over well. I think it was Welker. It's so funny. The two of them, their histories have now blended together as a Patriots fan. Went out and said all that, and he ended up being sacked for the first quarter of a playoff game that ended up costing us. No, it was definitely Welker. That ended up costing us the game. That was met with, at least at the time, like, are you kidding me? Why are we sabotaging the team? I don't feel as badly in taste as the figure skating commentators' comments are. It's not the same as insinuating live in the air that you want to have sex with your coworker.
No, it's not. And I do believe what Roenick was sort of saying, that I think he honestly felt that was something that you can sort of get. Obviously, he was feeling very, very comfortable, in that interview. I don't think he actually meant that that's what he was going to do.
No, I agreed.
And I'm a big believer in intent. Now, how do you prove intent? I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know how much pressure could have possibly been on NBC Sports to get rid of Roenick, unless there was a reason they really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, that seems more like Roenick is probably not in the Hall of Fame for his mouth more than anything. Mm-hmm. And it may have just been as I think I've told you before, I have rules of life, and Rule 11 is there are two reasons for everything: a good reason and a real reason. And it may just have been a good reason to eliminate Roenick, but not the real reason. But to bring up a anti-straight person bias at a major network is
idiotic.
Not what you want to be known for on the internet.
No, absolutely not. And either he really needs the money and is looking for a settlement, because I can't see how this going to court and him winning.
No.
So he's basically looking for some go-away money.
What all these people who feel like they've been canceled need to do is what Drew Brees did, which is you say something, you take a minute, you realize stuff, and you come back and say, you know what, I was wrong. Not, I'm sorry anyone who took it the wrong way or anyone who's offended. Not, this isn't me, this isn't what I really believe. It's go back and say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. I may not have meant it that way, but I understand why it was a problem. And the United States is incredibly forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone still dances to Michael Jackson stuff on the radio, and we know what happened with Michael Jackson. Right?
That's right. We know we knew a long time ago there was no chance that Billie Jean's kid wasn't his son.
As Chris Rock said in one of his stand-ups, black people love Michael Jackson. We love him so much we're willing to forgive him. We give him the first kid. But I mean, take Drew Brees. And Brees was smart enough to only go, as we say, on Yahoo Finance and not the Barstool Sports. But Brees had the blowback. Apparently, actually talked to his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you and I don't understand how he couldn't have been aware enough about what was going through his teammate's life before the situation, at least seems to have had enough sincere conversations or be able to fake having had sincere conversations enough that the vast majority of the vitriol that would have come his way is going to be gone. It's going to be one of those things like he said something stupid, he went back on it, and most people are going to either forgive or forget it.
Yeah, basically he Andy Petted it.
Right. Yeah. Andy Pettit, I only used steroids once, it was wrong, and I'm sorry.
But got right in front of it and did it right away.
Yeah. I remember when F.P. Santangelo, there's another great giant for you who somehow I'm sure will be on the Wall of Fame at some point. Former
expert.
But but F.P. Santangelo is one of the people whose names was released on the Mitchell report. Is one of the people who was someone who got tested positive for whatever. Or no, it was Mitchell report. They did like a big thing, and he was one of the people who tested positive. And they asked him about it. He said, "Yeah, I knew it was wrong." And he went through the reason I did it was I was on the fringe of the major leagues, and other people were doing it, and I felt if I didn't do it, there's no way I would be able to keep my job.
Brutally honest and accurate, and I love it.
It was brutally honest, and it's like, yeah, F.P. Santangelo is the 24th or 25th man on every roster he was ever on. And if he saw other people doing it, and this was his job, and he wanted to stay in the league, he was like, I did it. I knew it was wrong at the time, but I felt I had to do it for this reason. I'm like, I understand you. You're never getting the Hall of Fame anyway, FP, so it's okay. But, like, I understand why you did it, and it's at least, like, forgivable. Again, nobody thinks about F.P. Santangelo outside of me. But he at least, again, he was already caught at that point. But he at least went out in front of it once it was caught, and he was one of the few people who stood up and said, this was wrong, here's why I did it, and I'm sorry I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We can all move on.
And moving on to one final thing.
Yes, go ahead.
See that
we're doing well.
Yeah, thank you. So a few weeks ago, I put it to you to predict a team for Kaepernick. I will. You picked the Chargers. I'm going to now.
Within a month, I believe I said, but I think football's had a lot of weird things going on. So
yeah, so I'm basically.
I still stick with the Chargers.
Well, I'm going to see if you want to take a wager. As of August 25th, he's still not signed with anybody. Chargers included.
At this point, I agree with you because I don't And it's not because I don't think he won't sign anywhere. It's because I don't think football has any idea what they're doing at the moment. They have no real plan. They're 2 weeks out from what training camp's supposed to be, and nobody has any idea what the hell's actually going on. And that uncertainty is what I think is going to stop Kaepernick. And I'm going to tell you at this point, if he signs the team, I still think it's the Chargers. I think first of all, I don't know if we're going to even have a season. I am pretty pessimistic about having any significant season for football. I don't know what's going to happen with the other leagues. They may be able to get something in before things get really bad again, but we're too immature as a country to actually have any sort of plan that would allow any of these things to happen. Other countries have already gone through this, and they're basically done, and we're just getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I won't take any bets on Kaepernick, not because I don't think a team would sign him, but I think there's too much uncertainty around the season for anyone to want. If this were a normal season, I think he'd be signed. This is not a normal season, and I don't think anyone's going to want to throw that into the fire.
Yeah, see, I was going to go with a different answer as to why he won't, because at this point, since we last said that, he's now gotten Netflix money and Disney money.
True.
So if 3 years ago, Kaepernick probably needed to play, or he needed some type of paycheck. He sure as hell doesn't need it now.
No. I would like him to vote in the next election, though. That would be good.
Yes. Well, I mean...
Hold on. That would be superlative. There we go. I haven't come close to using fantastic again, so I haven't thrown things up. I figured I'd try these more.
Well, there's a lot I can say about Kaepernick, both good and bad. I will say I love his message, not certain about the messenger. And that's my most politically correct way to say that.
Yeah, I mean, his message was great, but when I found out he did not vote in the 2016 election, I was just kind of like, come on, dude.
Oh, I was pissed off at that. I was so pissed. I don't know. I mean, that's one thing I hope because one of what the statements that the players can put on their back of the jersey for the NBA. I know that, granted, there's no chance of me ever making the NBA at this point, but the one social justice message I would have of the approved list would be vote.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see how many have that.
I'd still stick with he hates me.
Nice. Well, Evan, I'll miss you for next week. I know that you've got to finish some packing because you've got Wisconsin to do after a big, busy week. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
I did run that meeting this morning for 200 people off my internet. Everything was fine except for the fact I had to play videos through Zoom and had never actually realized I had to share my sound. So the first video didn't go so well because I didn't realize I had actually had to hit a button to share sound. So in case you ever have to do a Zoom meeting and you're playing someone a video, just know there's a button for that. Other than that, everything went okay. It was just a crazy week getting everything organized for that. So,
all right. Well, be safe in Wisconsin. I hope you have a fantastic time, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Vinny Laspinuso, you're up next week. Do us proud.
I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Take care. Thank you so much for listening. Look for new content soon from NotInHallOfFame.com. Stay safe, everybody.